Burning questions.
Insightful answers.
Listener's choice.
With Clement Manyatela.
What's going on, Abel? It's time for our Listener's Choice feature. Not Thursday Dialogue. Thursday Dialogue is tomorrow. So we were broadcasting upstairs, so I ran down. So I'm still catching my breath. The previous hour wasn't in the studio. We were broadcasting from the entertainment area here at Prime Media House because we had the live audience. So lovely every time we've got visitors and we're broadcasting in front of them, because when they ask questions and, you know, you can see who they are, and you're not hiding behind your phone and I'm not hiding behind the studio. So it's time now for our Listener's Choice feature. And today on Listener's Choice, I want us to discuss the tender and bid adjudication process and how it works, because there's a lot of rot in the system. It's been captured for a while now. From roads, schools, clinics, to procurements of goods and services, the way tenders are awarded has been questionable. Government spends hundreds of billions of rands every single year on public projects and services, construction of schools, construction of hospitals. They're supplying medical equipment, IT systems, stationery, you name it. These contracts are awarded through what's meant to be an open and fair tender system. And yes, on paper, it's all about transparency, it's about competition, it's about value for money. They're designed to make sure that public funds are spent wisely and that the qualifying businesses, whether you're big or you're small, you actually benefit. But in reality, you know the stories that we've heard about the tender system and how people have benefited unduly. Countless stories about irregular expenditure, inflated contracts. They're politically connected individuals that are always lending these massive deals. So what is it about this system? Where is it working? Where is it not working? We've invited Werner van Rooyen, who is the director and facilitator at How to Tender, to really come and explain to us the system. Because to really understand this system and how it works, we need to go beyond these stories we hear and look at the mechanics. How are these tenders advertised? What happens after bids are submitted? And crucially, what takes place during the bid adjudication stage? The moment when this committee decides this is the company we want to go with. And who sits in those committees? Werner, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Clement. Yes, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, we have been complaining for the longest of time about how this tender system has led to just monies being looted from our government. For listeners who might not be familiar, what exactly is a government tender and why does South Africa use this system so much for public procurement?
Okay, Clement, that's a good question. So first of all, a tender is where the government, which is presented by organs of state, they request the public to provide them with goods or services at a certain price. Okay, so with the emphasis on the public there. And the reason why tenders are used, not just in South Africa, but all around the world, is for the government or then the procuring entity to get the best product at the best price. So that is the main reasons why we use the tender process.
Mm-hmm. And doesn't government have the capacity internally? I mean, because sometimes they want to buy stationery and you must still get a tender for something like that. Isn't there internal capacity to procure these goods and services?
Yes, there is internal capacity, but one of the reasons that the government decided they're going to go the tender route is to increase entrepreneurship. They wanted people to start opening up their own businesses. Unfortunately, not everybody is built to own their own business. So there is pros and cons to it, but there are many of these services and goods that they procure through tenders, which they can actually do themselves if they then employ people to do it. So it's give and take, one or the other.
So who is allowed to apply for these tenders, and what are some of the key requirements or documents that a company needs to be submitted before a bid? Because I pick up sometimes that you will have one main company that then has a subsidiary of companies. And when you look at take the COVID-19, for instance, PPE, there are so many companies that have never, ever provided any services in the medical sphere. But come COVID, government needs PPE. And then suddenly companies prop up and they get tenders to provide PPE. So what are actually the requirements here?
Yeah. So, first of all, anybody can apply to a government tender. So, government tenders, as a general rule, are open to the public. So, and that's why it is advertised publicly, and anybody can respond. There's no law prohibiting me and you, who has got nothing to do with construction. Hopefully you, Clement, I don't know, but I don't have anything to do with construction. But there's nothing prohibiting us from responding to a construction tender. Hopefully we will be eliminated because of the procedures and because of all the requirements. But no, anybody can respond, and that is what is happening. So, and paper is a patient thing. I mean, I can write you the best tender proposal on a piece of paper that you can imagine, and so if you can fool somebody, you can fool somebody. So, the fact is that if you respond to a tender, you must be a legal business, and that they test by your tax compliance. So
you don't need to have experience in that field. So to use your analogy, Werner, if there's a construction tender out there, 200 million rand on the table or whatever, 50 million rand, can you and I just apply as whether the main contract or subsidiary company, even though we have never played in that sphere before?
Yes, but luckily, Clement, there are requirements built into the tender process, which then will hopefully, like I said, eliminate us from going any further. So nothing is stopping us to submit a tender, but there are going to be requirements about which we will be unable to meet, and based on that, we should be then eliminated from the evaluation process. But, I mean, if there are so many loopholes, and I don't really want to get into that. But just to answer the final piece of your question about the documents that you need to require to submit is, there are three important documents. First, your tax compliance, because you have to be tax compliant. Then, if you want to do business with government, to be registered on the supplier database, or CSD as it is commonly referred to. And then obviously broad-based black economic empowerment, BEE, you have to have either a certification or then a sworn affidavit. Those are the common three documents required. But then obviously, depending on the tender, there are going to be other documents as well. Okay. Now, many people think if they've got those three documents plus a company registration, they are ready to tender. But that's not true.
Yeah. Okay. 011-883-0702. What questions do you have about the tender system? What questions do you have about the bid adjudication process? Or maybe it's the concerns that you have and not necessarily questions. What have you observed? Maybe you've sat on these bid adjudication committee meetings, or maybe you've worked in procurement in government. What have you experienced? 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Werner, I want us to get to the bid specification committee or bid adjudication committee. What is that committee all about, and how are those people even appointed?
Okay. The thing is, you must be specific because there are three basic committees. The first of which is the bid specification committee, right? So those people are usually made up of, or that committee rather, will be made up of key players in that organ of state. So let's say they want to procure computers, all right. So then one of the people that will be part of the bid specification committee, the first committee, will be obviously the people from procurement. Then there will be people from finance to make sure that there is money available. And then obviously the people from IT who needs the computers. And the people from the IT will then make sure that the specifications are submitted correctly in the tender document. And then the procurement people or office is supposed to make sure that it complies with all the procurement policies and regulations, and then the finance people will make sure that there is money. So that is the bid specification committee. And it's usually a mix between senior and junior people. And then when you get to the evaluation committee, now the evaluation committee is most of the time the same people as that was of the bid specification committee. All right, so they then evaluated in also a mix between senior and junior people, but not your top senior people. And then they will evaluate the tender according to all the laws and rules and regulations. And then after the bid evaluation committee has evaluated the tenders, then the tenders that made it through the 3 stages of evaluation that gets to the final say, those tenders will then be put forward to the awarding committee. Now, the awarding committee, those are the top people in the organization. So that will be the financial manager, the CEO, chief executive officer, and the head of procurement, those guys. And they will then meet. Now, if you look at the municipality, it will be people in the town council. There will be a committee formed with councillors and those type of things. And they will meet on an ad hoc basis, and then they will go through the findings of the evaluation committee, and if they are happy with the evaluation committee's findings and recommendations, then they award the tender to the bidder with the highest score on the preference point system, and they literally vote by raising their hands on it, and there must be a quorum, 50 plus 1, 50% plus 1 extra vote. And that is how they should award them. So, different people for the last section of evaluation.
Okay, I see. And are there any standard rules or frameworks, like let's take the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act, for instance, that guide these committees when evaluating the bids?
Yes. Look, the first framework obviously is the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act, or otherwise referred to as the Triple PFA that you mentioned there. The Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act, that act provides guidance only on which preference points the system they must be used. Clement, I don't know if you have seen in tenders that they talk about 80-20 and 90-10 systems. Whereby the 80 points you score for your price and 20 points you score on specific goals. Now, the Triple PFA guide or provide guidance on that. So that the Triple PFA states that all tenders in South Africa must be awarded on either the 90-10 or the 80-20 preference point system. Then it goes further in Section 2 where it says that they must also then apply specific goals where they must try to advance people who have been disadvantaged previously. And they must also try to buy local. Okay, I'm just dumbing it down here a bit, but those are the 3 things that the Triple PFA provides the procuring entities with. The rest are made up by the Public Finance Management Act, the Municipal Finance Management Act, and then all the regulations around those, and then also the organs of state, their own supply chain management policies and procedures, which needs to be guided again according to the Constitution, where they say that all tenders must be fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective. So those are the things that guide them. But now, Clement, you can hear there's a lot of things that they need to look at. There are a lot of laws. And that is where the problem starts. Nothing is in one place.
Yeah, I've got some questions coming from our listeners. So let's go to some calls and some WhatsApps as well. Let's start with Zweli, who's calling us from Johannesburg. Zweli, good morning.
Good morning, 702 listeners.
Sure.
My name is Zweli. I just have a question here. So I'm in a situation whereby I'm a bid officer, of course. So there's a tender here that has been advertised. The tender previously it was awarded for that specific successful bidder. So now the tender has been re-advertised, just like I said now. But now my question is, the same successful bidder, is he or she allowed to bid again? Because remember, if he bids again, they have an advantage because of they know the pricing, they know what documentation is required, although it's been stated on the tender document. But then it's like that is unfair because now you are competing with people that you already know what exactly is being required by those evaluating committee members.
Yeah. Why are they re-advertising it, Zweli? Because you're saying the person had already won.
No, it's basically it's actually meaning that the tender it was awarded and then the contract was finished. So now they're advertising again, so that they need those services again. So now my question is, why the bidder that was successful previous awarded should bid again? Because it should not be allowed at all. And I will encourage all the bidders out there to report any corruption activities that they can see on the ground that are happening, because that's not allowed. It's also referred as a tender rotation winning bidders. You understand? That you're not giving a fair competition to the market. Thank you.
Which of the committees do you sit in, Zweli? The bid evaluation, the bid adjudication committee?
No. I think you've made a mistake there, Clement.
Yeah?
I said I'm a bidder. I'm not a.
Oh, you're a bidder. Oh, got you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Zweli, in Johannesburg. Werner?
All right. So his first concern with regards to successful bidders bidding again, and he says that's unfair because then they know the tender has been awarded to them. He used the wrong phrase by saying it has been re-advertised. It's not re-advertised. It is just advertised again. Because the previous contract came to an end. And we are living in an open market society where anybody can respond to any tender again if they request the public. Now, for tenders. Now, the problem with tenders, or one of the disadvantages of the whole tender environment is that you cannot build relationships if you apply the tender procedures 100% correctly. Because, as you know, you want to build a relationship with one of your clients, one of your suppliers, and you invest money to actually use that supplier's products or infrastructure. And now, 3 years later or 3 years down the line, the contract has come to an end. Now you must do the tender over again. Now you start afresh. Now you have to reinvest money in getting a new supplier, and that relationship that you built up over the last 3 years is gone now. So in a sense, that is actually a disadvantage, and I know that many organs of state officials they moan and they say that this is a problem to them. So the fairness comes in, I think, for the caller that they must just unfortunately have to try harder. So, and then coming to the fraudulent and corruption reporting, there are fraud lines, and then that they can call, but there's also a website, the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer, which one can contact and then report these type of things. And we need to do that. That's the only way it's going to come out.
Yeah, just quickly, the last one before the headlines.
Hi, Clement. This is Bazooka from Pretoria. We are professional service providers. The other loophole we're seeing with procurement process is that other bidders will bid at a low price as possible, and in the middle of the contract invoke what we call modification to increase the price. And this is disadvantages those who had bidded higher than them, perhaps with more accurate specifications.
Werner, surely that shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, so that unfortunately, Clement, is a education problem. The officials that evaluate the tenders, they need to be educated in the sense that they must know what is a fair price for something. And, the saying goes, if it is too good to be true, it is too good to be true. So they must have a look and a holistic overview on all the tenders received, all the pricing. And then they must realize that if the bulk of the tenders are on the higher end of the scale and this one bidder comes in with a ridiculous price, then there must be something wrong. And that bidder is not supposed to go through the stages of evaluation to get to the final stage where they're going to score the most points for price because the pricing is too low. Yeah. I can say that type of awards are getting less and less and less because officials are getting educated and they see through this these days. Because and one thing that he didn't mention there is they call it variation orders. So they start executing the job and halfway through they say, oh no, I can't do it anymore. I forgot to add this to the tender or that to the tender. And that's a main concern. It was, in the past, it was a big issue, but it seems to fade out at this moment.
I'm glad to hear that. Werner van Rooyen, Director and Facilitator at How to Tender. Thank you so much for making time for us.